Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is the 2nd of June, 2022, our first episode here in June of 2022. Fun one coming up today. Athlon Sports released their first and second teams, all Big 12 for the 2022 football season. We'll take a look at those and also a packed slate this weekend of Big 12 Diamond Sports. 3 Big 12 teams in the College World Series. They get underway this afternoon, Thursday afternoon, and then Big 12 teams aplenty in the NCAA tournament. We'll tell you all where all of they will be playing and who they will be playing against in this tournament. That's coming up and more on today's show.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, hello everybody, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. It is the 2nd of June, 2022. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at LOBig12. You guys can follow me at Josh Neighbors _. You guys can find the show wherever you get your podcast, and we are on YouTube as well. All right, so exciting show coming up today. Athlon Sports released their 2022 all-conference teams for the Big 12, first and second teams. And the first team looks like this. Also, I'll post a link to this in the description below so you guys can check it out for yourselves. So the first team offense is where we have to go. And these are decided. I think they have their staff to do that. All right. So this is based off of how they think players will perform in 2022. Career statistics and awards matter in the evaluation, but choosing players for the 2022 all-conference team is largely based on predicting and projecting the best for the upcoming year. Also, team strength does not play a role into selections. These are the best individual players at each position in the league for 2022. All right. So that kind of causes some debate already. The way it works is they have a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wideouts, a tight end, and then 5 offensive linemen. And then it totals up to 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 12 guys in their first teams on each side of the ball. Obviously, there are. We know there are not 12 guys in the field at once. There are 11. So with that in mind, we will look at this right now. All right. So here you go. Here you go. This is what we're looking at right here. 11 guys. Yeah, 11 guys in the field. All right. So here you go with your first team all Big 12. I lost my mind there for a second. Spencer Sanders is your quarterback for the all Big 12 team. Bijan Robinson is running back number 1. Deuce Vaughn is running back number 2. Quentin Johnson is the first receiver. Listen, I don't know if they have any preference here in these listings. I'm just telling you guys how they come out to me. Xavier Hutchinson is wide receiver number 2. Xavier Worthy is wide receiver number 3. Ben Sims of Baylor is your tight end. Jacob Gall of Baylor is your center. Connor Galvin of Baylor is an offensive lineman. Zach Frazier of West Virginia, offensive lineman. Cooper Beebe of Kansas State, offensive lineman. Trevor Downing of Iowa State, also an offensive lineman. And I think there are some arguments to be made on the offensive line as well. That really is not my super area of expertise. I'm not going to act like I know what's great, what's not. I know that Baylor believes they're going to have a bunch of guys who could be on this team when it's all said and done. So, I know some of them think that, hey, they could have 3 or 4 guys on the offensive line. But let's look at the quarterbacks, right? The quarterback, I should say. Spencer Sanders is your first team all Big 12 quarterback here. Now, he is the reigning first team all Big 12 quarterback from the year 2021. So he returns now in 2022. But if you guys remember our quarterback power rankings, Spencer was really nowhere to be found in that top 4. I think he made it to 5, I think is where we ended up eventually taking Spencer Sanders. But when you think about the talent across this conference, there's a reason why they can't put the reason why they're not going to put a JT Daniels or a Quinn Ewers at number 1 is because those guys are new. They have not played in the conference yet. We don't know what they look like in the Big 12. And we do know that Spencer Sanders was the quarterback of a team that made it all the way to the Big 12 championship and nearly, won the Big 12 championship. And also, you could argue, well, it's because of him they didn't. But also, they played in a New Year's Six Bowl, and they also lit up Notre Dame in that New Year's Six Bowl game, and they won, 10-plus games last season. And so there are plenty of valid arguments for why Oklahoma, I think, what is that, 12-2 last year, 11-2, excuse me. Let's see, they're 11-1 going into the Big 12 championship game. Lost that one, 11-2, 12-2 last year in the 14 games that they played. I believe they ended up last season. So yeah, I mean, this there's a reason why he's up there. He's the first team, and he was the first team quarterback last year because there weren't many better options in the Big 12 for first team quarterback. Now you think about Dillon Gabriel, who is now at Oklahoma, obviously. You think about his standing in the conference. He's first team quarterback, or excuse me, second team quarterback, I should say. And so that's where he sits. So, I think there are some arguments to be made that Dillon Gabriel is definitely a better quarterback than our man Spencer Sanders. And you guys know me, I'm on Spencer Sanders Island. I've really been hoping for a long time that he can get that quality of play up to what we know it can be and do it on a consistent basis. But Dillon Gabriel, in my opinion, has been a far more consistent player, albeit in a worse conference. So we have to acknowledge that as well. So I think there's a reason why Athlon Sports is erring on the side of caution here. But also, look, once again, there is no bigger Spencer Sanders defender than I. And even I can't stomach putting, I think I'd put Dillon Gabriel number one, honestly, over Spencer Sanders on this list. I think that's where I would go. I know, once again, I know Spencer won it last year, got the distinguishment last year, but I think Dillon Gabriel is a better player. And also, if we're going with projections, I think in the Jeff Lebby offense, there's a much better chance that we see a great season from him as opposed to Spencer Sanders in an offense where, hey, they're losing Jalen Warren. They're losing his favorite wide receiver in Tay Martin, right? So he's having some attrition. He's had to deal with attrition before. I know that he lost Tylan Wallace, obviously, and found Tay Martin. But there's going to have to be some stepping up. It's going to happen in the Oklahoma State wide receiver course. So I think they have the two. I think they have the two correct guys. I think Sanders and Gabriel are the two correct guys to have. I'd put Sanders 2. I put Gabriel 1 just because I think that he's a better player. I do think he's a better player. I think actually, it's crazy as it sounds, I think Spencer Sanders as a player might have a little bit of a higher ceiling than Dillon Gabriel. I think as an athlete, he brings, in my opinion, when I watch him play, he brings a little bit more. I think the way he, not like he's a huge guy, but he really has some good zip on the football, really does. And not saying Dillon Gabriel doesn't, but we watched that Notre Dame game and you saw him, my hair's crazy right now. You saw him, light that game up. And, I think there's no reason to think that hey, you can bring a little bit of that to each one of those games. And I know Dillon Gabriel might be able to as well, but I think that ceiling for Spencer just as a player is a little bit higher. I think Dillon, though, is going to have a bit more success this year. There are no qualms. Nobody can have any qualms with this team at running back at the, at this juncture. Bijan Robinson and Deuce Vaughn right there. The wide receivers, I think there is definitely a big three in this league. I think it's Quentin Johnson. I think it's Xavier Hutchinson. I think it's Xavier Worthy. I think those three guys, no doubt. Maybe there was some consideration for Marvin Mims, but Johnston, Hutchinson, and Worthy, I mean, you get NFL projectables, you get already proven talent, you get multi-year guys, you get young, all of those guys are proven strong commodities. Quentin Johnson, start with him first. We talked about him a little while ago. He is a player that is on draft boards because he's got that excellent downfield ability. Let's see if they roll with Chandler Morris at quarterback, and I think a lot of us believe that is the direction that TCU is going to go. If they roll with Chandler Morris at quarterback, there is a really good chance that I think he has a good season. I want to see what he looks like in the intermediate passing game. Once again, a lot of his work was done down the field, and a lot of that was not just his doing. Max Duggan, not a player that was really excellent, last year at the intermediate passing game, and hasn't been his entire career. Xavier Hutchinson, guy has to be on that list in my opinion. You know, the last couple of years been really strong. Obviously has one more year left there at Iowa State, and I think he deserves to be on this list. Xavier Worthy is the guy who could be the best out of the bunch, right? He has the most potential. Now, Quentin Johnson, Johnson has NFL measurables, NFL talent, but also Xavier Worthy can't leave this year after this season's over. And I think with that, you know, he has got the chance to just catapult himself into stardom, into the category where it's like, all right, this guy is going to be our first receiver taken in 2023. And I would say that he's probably in the catbird seat for that position right now. If he wants to really stamp that ticket, and I think he can really do so this season, he's going to have that opportunity at the University of Texas this year. Ben Sims at tight end is interesting. I think after the season he had last year, I think that's why he is going to get this nod. I think there's a lot of question marks at tight end across this conference. So I think, you know, Ben Sims getting the nod for that reason, but he's going to be a really important offensive weapon for this team in 2022 because, look, they lost receivers and they're going to switch up quarterbacks and they need somebody who's going to be a safety blanket for their new quarterback. I think Ben Sims provides that safety blanket. I think they're really excited to have him to be that safety blanket. Nice to have a veteran guy there, so he is there. And then obviously mentioned the offensive line, Gall, Galvin, Frazier, Beeve, and then Downing. All right, let's go first team defense here. But first, quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Go to built.com today. That's built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com today. They've got Built Go. They've got Built Boost. They've got Built Puffs. They've got everything really that you could need. They're healthy. They're good. They're good for you. Once again, built.com today, promo code LOCK15. All right, so first team defense. Will McDonald, Iowa State. Dante Stills, West Virginia. Felix Anudike, Anudike, I always mess that one up. Anudike Uzama, Kansas State. Colin Oliver, Oklahoma State. Siaki Ika, Baylor. Linebacker, Dylan Doyle, Baylor. Daniel Green, Kansas State. DeMarvion Overshone, Texas. Hodges Tomlinson from TCU. Travius Hodges Tomlinson from TCU is corner. Julius Brents from Kansas State is corner. Kenny Logan at safety from Kansas. And Jason Taylor II from Kansas is also on this defense. Yeah, I think the only guys that you'd maybe have an issue with, you know, I know maybe there's some discrepancy in how many edge guys are putting on there. I would put Jalen Redmond and Brock Martin up there, maybe even Tyler Lacey, and put them in the running to be on that first team defensive line. I think those guys definitely have the skill. But Dante Stills has been around for a minute, and I think that, you know, we know he's a really good player. Will McDonald's got to be on there. Felix and Anudike Uzama has to be on there. I understand those guys being on that list. Siaki Ika, you know, I think is a huge potential pick, so he's going to be on there too. And Colin Oliver feels like he's got to be on there, but I think the other guys in contention, you know, it just shows you like this is actually a really good, you know, I think that I think other parts of the Big 12 this year on defense are going to be a little stretched thin. I think linebacker is not excellent in this league in 2022. I'm curious to see what it looks like, but I'm not sure it's going to be excellent in this league in 2022. In secondary, not sure how good these secondaries are going to be in this league in 2022. So, you know, I think like, how do I feel about the rest of these guys? You know, like on the linebacker core, Dylan Doyle, Daniel Green, and then DeMarvion Overshone. Like, I think DeMarvion Overshone out of all these guys is probably the most talented player, but, you know, does that mean production? No, we know that for Texas standpoint does not mean production. So I think he has a big year. I think it's interesting that he's in this spot. And then, yeah, I don't have really much to say about it. I mean, I think Travius Hodges Tomlinson is probably the corner that we all think about in this conference this season. So we'll see. Second team, on special teamers, guys. Casey Legg, West Virginia, obviously great kicker name. He's there. Michael Turk, punter, Oklahoma. Malik Knowles, Kansas State for kick returner. And Deshaun Jameson of Texas is your PR, punt returner on this team. That's the first team. Second team, quarterback, Dillon Gabriel. Running backs, Taj Brooks of Kansas State, Devin Neal of Kansas. Wide receivers, this is interesting. Marvin Mims, Miles Price of Texas Tech, and Bryce Ford Wheaton of West Virginia. Tight end, Jaleel Billingsley, Texas. Steve Oliva, TCU center. Hunter Woodward, offensive line, Oklahoma State. Wyatt Millum, offensive line, West Virginia. Anton Harris, who's a pretty big prospect, Oklahoma. And then Junior Angulau from Texas. So on this, where do your eyes go to? Running back. Mea culpa. I did not give Taj Brooks enough credit when we did our running back power rankings. I can firmly say I did not give Taj Brooks the credit that he deserves. So I'm glad to see him on this list. He deserves to be on this list. He's probably one of the best 4 running backs. Eric Gray has a really good case to be on this list, I think. I think he and Taj Brooks are similar players. Like they do a little bit of everything. So, I guess. But the thing is, like, you hear a different name whenever you talk about that backfield at Texas Tech. And I guess it's a good thing. But I think people are kind of split on who they think is going to be the best guy in that backfield. Like, you hear a lot of Sir Roderick Thompson. You hear a lot of Xavier White. I think talked about this before, but I think he is going to wide receiver now. So Roderick Thompson, Xavier White, Taj Brooks, like you hear a lot of all 3 of these guys. So which way, could you go? Even if you want to pick one of them, I guess you could pick Sir Roderick or you could pick Taj, but you go either way. Devin Neal, I have no problem with. I think Eric Gray is probably the next guy in line to make contention for this list. Also, if Eric Gray ends up being the number 1 guy, on this, in the end of the season, first team all Big 12. I think we'd all, a little bit of shock and surprise. Obviously, I think it would take probably an injury to Deuce Vaughn, injury to Bijan Robinson, or maybe an injury either way for those guys. I also consider Roshan Johnson, who I think is like one of the best guys in this conference, but obviously he's behind Bijan Robinson. So you can't really put him in this list, which is really interesting. Wide receivers. Oh, Devin Neal, 100% deserves to be there. We mentioned this on our power rankings. Robbie Triano and I did our power rankings, and we both had Kansas running back room. He had them 2. I had them 3. And I had them there because I think Deuce Vaughn's worth like an entire running back room. So that's why I put him there. Marvin Mims, yes. Bryce Ford Wheaton, yes. Miles Price, I do not know. I personally would have gone with a guy like a Isaiah Nayer. Miles Price is a guy that had a nice couple seasons to start off. Last year, 38 catches, 523 yards, and 2 touchdowns last year. It's a guy they also used in some of those running game stuff, 14 carries for 83 and a score last year. He had 12 carries for 124 to score back in 2020. Excuse me. Early as we're doing this podcast. Look, we don't know what Isaiah Nayer is going to be. That's something that we're not sure what he's going to look like in the Big 12. Somebody has to catch passes, yes, at Texas Tech, and there's a reason to assume that it's going to be a guy like Miles Price. But Isaiah Nayer last year at Wyoming, 44 catches, 878 yards, and 12 touchdowns. 6'3", 210 from that Fort Worth area. This guy is a big-time target. That's what he is. And he's a guy who can catch a lot of touchdowns. Maybe, not going to give you 100-yard games, but he is a red zone target because of his size, because he's able to go up and get the football. And so I think I would lean towards Nayer in that offense before I would go with Miles Price. I also think Brennan Presley is a guy that definitely deserves some consideration when you're picking the top 6 guys in the conference. I like the idea though of Miles Price as this kind of non-standard pick, right? Almost like if this was fantasy football, you'd be glad to have a guy like a Miles Price, and you wouldn't be surprised when he's putting up big numbers. So look, I like the pick of Miles Price. I'm not there with them on that, but I think it's an interesting pick. Jaleel Billingsley, the tight end for Texas, I think he's got to be there. And then we talked about some of the offensive line stuff before. Now I'll run down the second team defense. Tyree Wilson, Brock Martin, Jalen Redmond, Eli Huggins, Tyler Lacey, Danny Stutzman, Deshaun White, Orion Vance, Deshaun Jameson, Eko Boye Doe, from Kansas State, Anthony Johnson, Iowa State, and then Dadrian Taylor Demerson from Texas Tech. So I think also the linebackers there, like I think Stutzman and Deshaun White are playing have pretty good years at Oklahoma. We'll see how Brent Venables has them playing, and they might find themselves at the end of the year on that first team defense. But that was pretty, there you go. There's your first and second teams. Oh, no, instead of again, the special teamers. Let's see. Let's get they said scroll to continue. Okay. And they also have third teams on here, but we're not going to get like too deep into the third team. Alex Hale, Oklahoma State kicker, Austin McNamara, Texas Tech punter, Brennan Presley, kick returner, and Jalen Noel, Joe Knoll from Iowa State. Third team offense. They went all the way down to third team. Just go through this real quickly. They did decide to go with JT Daniels at the quarterback, Tay McWilliams at running back, and Kendre Miller from TCU. There's no love for our guy Eric Gray getting snubbed here on this list. Wide receivers, Phillip Brooks, Brennan Presley, and there is our man Isaiah Nair. Braden Willis at tight end, Mike Nowitzki at center, Doug Nestor, Daryl Simmons, Cole Birmingham, and Grant Miller. Shout out to Doug Nestor, West Virginia Tech transfer. Then on the defense, Keandre Coburn, Jalen Hutchings, Gabe Hall, Dylan Horton, and TJ Franklin, as well as Alfred Collins, rather. Those are your defensive linemen. Linebackers, Khalid Duke, D. Winters, and then Rich Miller. Corners, Woody Washington and Charles Woods. Safety, Key Lawrence, and safety, Mark Perry. Then your special teamers, it is they have all that on a fourth team. I'm not going to do a fourth team, guys. There's no fourth. We don't do 14 designations in this league. That's not really how it works. Griffin Kell, TCU kicker. Tom Hutton's your punter. Jalen Noel, kick returner. They kind of had him at punt returner last one, and then Darius Davis, TCU, is your punt returner on this list. Yeah, I'm not going to go down all the way to fourth team, although I do think Eric Ray at fourth team running back is a little bit of disrespect. So Ryder Thompson all the way down at fourth team as well too. Tay Barber. TCU wide receiver Sam Jones. Okay, so I'm going through them now. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know we need to do fourth team. I don't think that's the way this thing should work. I'm a three-teamer guy, but you guys can go check this out. I'll share the article. So interesting stuff there from Athlon Sports. One more quick word from our sponsors, and then we will hit on the schedule for this weekend's contest on the Diamond. All right, time to look at the Women's College World Series. For this year, the TV schedule, it begins today. I talked about this a little bit on the crossover episode with all the guys, but we'll do it once again right now. Thursday, June 2nd at noon Eastern. So we're just about 3.5 hours away from me recording this of when this begins. Texas and number 5 UCLA at noon on ESPN. 2:30 Northwestern and number 1 Oklahoma. That one is on ESPN. Oregon State and number 14 Florida at 7 o'clock on ESPN, and then Arizona and Oklahoma State on ESPN. There are 3 Pac-12 teams in UCLA, in Oregon State, and Arizona. There are 3 Big 12 teams in Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas. There is 1 Big 10 team in Northwestern. There's also an SEC team. That is Florida. So the only way in which we, to get Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are actually, positioned kind of apart. The only way we're going to get them is down the line, right? We would need both of them to win their first 2 games, I believe it is, to play. Texas and OU could play if they both win, or if they both lose, we could see them play in round number 2, or kind of as they go around. I guess you could say round 2. It is double elimination, obviously. So Oklahoma State's going to have to, they're going to have to do some work, I guess, to get a Big 12 matchup in there. Oklahoma could play Texas. I think we're all of the mind that we're going to get UCLA and Oklahoma. That's just me, though. So that is what that looks like. Now we have to go to the other side of things. Baseball, the regionals begin tomorrow, and in the Austin regional, hosted by Texas, Air Force, Texas, Dallas Baptist, and Louisiana Tech. That is where the Texas Longhorns reside in College Station. It's A&M, Oral Roberts, Louisiana, and TCU. There's your second Big 12 team. Obviously, a lot of fuss about OU not hosting. They are in Gainesville, where it's Florida, Central Michigan, Liberty, and OU. OU gets Liberty. Not an easy task for them to start off their potential road to the 2022 College World Series. In Statesboro, yes, Statesboro. We have that's for those of you who do not know, I believe that is hold on, let me double check. I think Georgia Southern is hosting this. Yeah, I'm almost positive. Yeah. So Statesboro, this is where Georgia Southern is hosting a regional. Texas Tech, Notre Dame, UNCG, and Georgia Southern are your 4 teams there. And finally, in the Stillwater Regional, this is a difficult draw. Grand Canyon, Arkansas, Missouri State, and Oklahoma State. Yikes. That is a difficult draw. I think all these on the ESPN family of networks. You guys can check them out. They'll be on tomorrow. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at LO Big 12. You guys can follow me at Josh Neighbors _. Make sure you guys check out all the Diamond Sports this weekend. Make sure you guys like the videos, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of stuff. Find us wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.